Today's session we have scheduled to cross-check your knowledge. We'll discuss some scenario-based question based on the Splunk. So I will be expecting the answer from you. So almost 40 to 50 questions I have prepared for you, which can be asked during the interview for Splunk Admin, and you should know about those scenarios. So I'll be sharing my screen. So one by one question we'll go through, and I'll be expecting the answer from you. Or if you don't know the answer, then we can discuss on those questions. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Splunk scenario based question. So first question is, what happens if cluster master gets down? Who can answer this question? If cluster master gets down, what will happen? Anyone?
Replication won't happen. Like, I mean, data will replicate based on previous replication on indexer here.
Okay, anybody else?
Replication, sir, continues. The indexer indexing, normal indexing is continuous. But if another indexer introduced the cluster, then it won't function.
Yes, that's the correct answer. If indexer, you understand, right? Whenever any indexer, receive the data on its input, right? Then it contact on the output, it contact with the cluster master and check which all peers are available for replication, right? It gets the list of peer from the cluster master, then it distribute the copy of index data to other peers, right? In case cluster master get down, so it will continue the replication. What happens is it will check the previous history before when the cluster master was up last time. So which all peers it has forwarded the copy of index data, right? It will continue to index the copy of send the copy of index data to other peer which were available, right? In case any new peer introduced, as you mentioned, any new peer introduced when cluster master is down, right? So replication of data will not happen to the new peer. Understand? So that is the one thing. And second thing, if cluster master is down, you will not be able to create any indexes, as well as you will not be able to create and to deploy any apps, because in the cluster, these indexes and apps you do using the cluster master. Clear this? Clear this, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is what is written on the next slide. The matter go down, the cluster continue to run as usual as long there is no other failure. Peers can continue to ingest data, stream copy of data to other peer, replicate bucket, and respond to the search request from the search head. Okay. Now, next question is, what happens if two of the index are down in 3-member cluster? If this is one of the questions that might be we have not taken this scenario. If you have 3 members in the cluster, 3 members means 3 peers, 3 indexers which copies the data, right? Which gets the data. So if out of these 3, if 2 of the indexers down, what will happen? So scenario is, let's suppose the cluster has search factor 2 and replication factor 3. Search factor 2 and replication factor 3. What will happen in that case? You understand the question? If out of 3 members, right? If out of 3 members, 2 indexer gets down, right? That means only 1 member is there. Only 1 member, and search factor you have defined as 2 and replication factor 3. Replication factor means how many copies of the data is available, mean how many indexers. So there are 3 indexers, that means replication factor will be 3. That means copy of the data is being stored on 3 indexers. search factor is 2. That means out of 3, right? TSDX file, index TSIDX file is available only for 2 indexers. That means 2 indexers are searchable, having searchable data. Getting your mind? So if you are defining search factor 2, that means out of 3, one of the indexers is not keeping the TSIDX file, right? That means it does not have index file. So let's suppose one indexer is down. 2 indexer is down. Out of two, one indexer is having searchable copy of data and one indexer does not have searchable copy of the data, right? In that case, cluster has to maintain 2 copy of searchable data, right? In that case, second peers also will create searchable copy. That means index file will be replicated to the second indexer as well. Getting what I'm saying? Let me you got my scenario. Out of 3 indexers, right? Replication factor was 3. That means all 3 indexers are having same copy of data, right? But search factor you have defined 2. That means only out of 3 indexers, only 2 indexers are keeping the searchable copy of data. That means 2 indexers are having TSIDX file. You understand that why in this scenario we have not defined search factor as 3? Because TSIDX file takes huge amount of storage to store the index file. That is the reason in some scenario you will see search factor is lesser than the replication factor, right? So now the question is, in case out of 3 peers, 2 peers are down, right? In 2 peers, one searchable peers is down and one non-searchable peers is down. So only one peer is left. So that peer, if that peer is having searchable copy of the data TSIDX file, then search will run normal because the copy that it is having, the particular particular indexer is having searchable copy of data, right? Because out of 3, one searchable copy, one peers which have searchable copy of data, that is down, and another peer which does not have searchable copy of data, that is down, and third one was having TSIDX file, right? So still search head you can search the data, but it depends on load, because only one indexer is right now searchable, right? In that case, that particular indexer will have more load, but you can still search the data. Get your point? Now next scenario. Sorry, I got disconnected. Okay, you got the scenario, right? Now second scenario is out of 3 indexers, as we mentioned, 2 indexers are having searchable copy of data, right? And one indexer does not have searchable copy of data. So 2 indexer, both of the indexer which have the searchable copy of data got down, right? So now only one indexer is left, which does not have searchable copy of the data. What will happen in that case? What do you think?
Searches will not work.
Searches will not work. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yes, sir. The raw data is not searchable, only the TSIDX files.
Okay, so the answer is because TSIDX file is not there, right? So search will be slower and sometimes it not show you the full data. But at the same time, it will recreate the TSIDX file from the raw data. It will create the time series index file from the raw data, right? Here is the answer. When two of the indexer peers goes down, if cluster has search factor 2 and replication factor is 3, the cluster master will instruct the last remaining peers to make the copies of all available bucket as a searchable one. That means it will recreate the TSIDX file. Also make them as a primary copy. This include creating the index file from the raw data, right? So it will recreate the TSIDX file from the raw data. During this activity, some of the searches will give incomplete result. because this processing is happening, right? In that case, some of the searches may give incomplete result. Once all the buckets copies are made searchable, then searches can give complete result. Got this point?
Yes, sir. I have one question, sir. Why companies configure one or more indexer as a non-searchable only has raw data?
The reason is what happens is, if you have 100 GB of data, right? If you are keeping searchable copy of data in one of the indexer, the total size of the indexer storage is 100 GB. Then out of 100 GB, 30 GB will be for raw data and 70 GB will be for TSIDX file. This index file takes huge amount of storage. That is the reason, to save the storage, you may not keep sometime searchable copy of data on any of the indexer peer. To save the storage on the bigger environment, when we have a gigabyte or even TB of data, many TB of data, in that case, storage requirement will be huge. Got it? Clear this question? I understood the answer, right? Next question. What happens if all the index are down in 3 members cluster? In 3-member cluster, if all the indexes are down, what will happen?
Searching will not work.
Searching will not work. The cluster master will show all the member status down. In the cluster master, it will show all the members are down. Forwarder will hold the data, which can significantly increase the waiting queue on the forwarder. Forwarder has the cache memory. Cache means temporary storage, right? So in this case, when all the peers are down, cluster member status, it will show as members is down, right? As well as forwarders will hold the data temporary, right, in the cache memory. And it will increase the storage of the forwarder. Of course, waiting queue of the forwarder will increase. This means that the complete data is inaccessible. That means if when all the peers are down, the complete data will not be accessible. That means not be searchable. Search head will not show any data for any query, as there are no indexer available to take place the request.
So, now, is there any like how long the forwarders hold the data?
How long means we have to define the, this is something called persistence queue. Persistence queue is by default 500 KB on the forwarders. However, we can increase how much you want. Okay. So next question, clear this? What happens if one of the search head down in 3-member cluster? What will happen?
Will work as normal only. Searches will continue working, and the search head will be back. It will rejoin the cluster.
Anybody else? Is it correct?
Yes, sir.
If any of the search head is down, right, out of 3-member cluster of search head, so you mean to say search will work as usual, right? But might be the resource utilization on the search head, but search head operation will not affect, right? Let's assume that the cluster has search factor 2 and replication factor is 3. If a search head cluster member fails for any reason and leaves the cluster unexpectedly, the cluster can usually continue function without interruption, as you mentioned, right? All search artifact resident on the failed member remain available through other search heads, right? If the failed member was serving as a captain, then remaining nodes elect another member as a captain, right? So you understand that election will happen, right? And any other member will automatically be elected as a captain. Since members share configuration, the new captain is immediately fully functional. But here is the election required a minimum 3 nodes. Unfortunately, we have 2, so we have to go with the configuration anyone available member as a static captain and other as one of the member. So for election, right? Election at least In our cases, right? In our cases, we had 3 search heads, right? Out of 3 search head, 1 is down, right? When you have 2 search head, election cannot happen because 50% vote. Yes or no? So mutual election cannot happen. Minimum 3 up node required to elect the captain automatically. Out of 3, whoever gets 2 vote will become the captain. But in case you have 2 nodes, 2 search head remaining, then automatic election cannot happen. In that case, you have to manually configure any of the search head. You can log in and nominate any of the search head as captain. Get in mind, search will not interrupt. But since we have, we had 3 search head, now 2 search head, right? There might be possible there's a performance issue, some load issues. Otherwise, searches will run continuously without any issues. Got this answer?
So now in this case, after, as it is written that we have to configure it manually.
Correct.
So once the search will be back, it will join how the captain
As a member.
still,
as a member.
Yeah, as a member. At that time, the election will not happen, right?
No, that time, because see, whenever captain is down, then that time only election happen. Because in search head, captains are dynamic captain. It's not fixed with any of the instance. Okay.
So again, to reconfigure the static captain as a dynamic one. Once we have all the members,
automatically it will become when you have more than 3 members, right? More than 3 members, right? More than 3 members up, then only election will happen and dynamically it will assign dynamically. But in our cluster we have only 3, so dynamic captain cannot be assigned. Election cannot happen because any time out of 3, 1 will get down. Then in 2, election will not happen, right? So it should have more than 3. Means at least 3 should be up at a time.
right? No, but what I was asking is, now we have a static captain and we have all the 3 nodes. In case if again goes down, let's say if it was a static captain that we have defined.
Let me tell you, it is not something static or dynamic that we have to define. Static means manually you have to configure. Static means manually you have to configure. Go on the search head cluster, go on the search head, right? Go on the search head cluster option and check. You will have 2 search head and you have option to make captain. Just click on that and that particular search head will become captain. Got my mind? Clear this with everyone, right? So now next question is, what happens if 2 of the search head down in 3-member cluster? If 2 search head down in 3-member cluster, what will happen?
Depends. If let's say if the captain or if both the members will go, then I don't think it will function. The cluster will not work actually. Right.
A majority of the members fail. The cluster cannot successfully elect a new captain because only one search head is left, right? Which result in the failure of entire cluster. Right? In this case, you may go ahead and configure the remaining member as a static captain. In that case, automatic election will not happen, right? So in that case, you have to configure the static captain. Otherwise, entire cluster will get down because election cannot happen.
But searches can continue to happen.
Searches can continue. Searches can continue to happen, but you have to configure. This one.
Manually, what to configure.
Manual, because the scheduled searches, ad hoc searches will work as it is. Ad hoc searches. But when you talk about the scheduled searches, right, that cannot work because search artifact will not be replicated without captain.
Sir, in a clustered deployment of Splunk, is there any steps that we should configure indexer cluster first, and then search head, then heavy forwarders, or does this sequence?
Same step that we have configured, right? First of all, indexer cluster, yes, then searcher cluster, then connect searcher cluster with indexer cluster. This is the whole configuration. Then we start with forwarder and device integration.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Indexer cluster first, search cluster first, configure each other, then connect search cluster with indexer cluster.
Sir, one thing I want to ask this, I faced again this problem of SSL certification. Although I checked the web.conf and there was only HTTP mode was enabled. But in production, how this certification works? Do companies use self-signed certificate, or they obtain certificate from certificate authorities? How this Splunk certification works?
Anything can happen once you enable HTTPS, right? To HTTPS,
Yes.
right? In that case, if you go with the self-signed certificate, you will get an error. This kind of error. For example, in my instance, https://192.168.0.120. I enable the SSL on this. Okay, so as you can see, you will get an error because this is self-signed certificate. You can see connection is not.
Yes.
See, self-sign and CA sign are equally secure.
Yeah.
But the reason is browser is not identifying the certificate. That's the reason browser is giving this that network is private or connection is not secure. But because Splunk is not something that we are giving access to outside public, right? Because if any site have the self-signed certificate, you get this kind of message which do not create a good image, right? That is the reason we should go with the CA sign certificate in that case. But for an internal application, we know that both are having equal security, whether self-sign or CA sign, then we can go with the self-sign as well. I've seen many companies have self-sign. Some company may go over CA sign, but CA sign you have to renew every year. However, self-sign is valid for 10 years. You don't have to apply again and again.
So just to answer him, basically in big corporates, they always go for CA sign, or there will be a certificate authority which will be giving certificate for, like, if I talk about something that I work on, each of the layer, every server will be having its own certificate, and we have to apply it. Like Sulabh was saying, 1 year or 2 year, whatever your certificate authorities gives the expiry period, you have to renew it before that so that you can use it. Or you will not land up that your website or the particular link, web link stops working. So yeah, you have to take care of the certificate updates from time to time.
Thank you.
Okay, so next question. Next question is, what happens if all the search head down in 3-member cluster? If all search head down, data will not be searchable. Nothing will happen. Probably user will get the site cannot reach. If I want to bad gateway error, and they cannot access instance, or if there's a load balancer also, nothing will be accessible. What happens if deployer is down? What happens if deployer is down?
Nothing. Your entire setup will work, but you will not be able to.
What? We will not be able to deploy apps and add-ons to the search head cluster.
Is that correct? Anybody else? Is that correct?
Correct.
You will not be able to deploy also, and you will not be able to remove also. You cannot install or remove apps from the search head cluster, right? You cannot push new configuration to the member, as well as you cannot uninstall also, because when you use deploy on the search head cluster, installing new apps and uninstalling old apps also has to be done by the deployer. A member that join or rejoin the cluster or restart cannot pull the latest set of apps, right? In case any member joins, right, it contact to the deployer, right, to get the application which are being already deployed to the cluster members. In that case, nothing will happen. In case some member restarts, right, it cannot be able to pull the existing app from the deployer, right? So that is what happens in case deployer is down. What happens if monitoring console is down? What happens if monitoring console, any of the any of the Splunk instance you nominated a monitoring console, right? What will happen in case it is down?
You will not be able to monitor your environment, whatever is reporting to monitoring console.
Anybody else? That's correct. Nothing major issues in case monitoring console is down. The only is, you'll not be able to monitor health parameters, right? So no major issues to environment, data flow, searches will work normally, index will happen as usual. Only issue is the admin or whoever using the monitoring console to track and monitor the health of the Splunk environment will lose the visibility. That's the only issue will happen when monitoring console is down. What happens if deployment server is down actually? What happens if deployment server is down? What will happen if deployment server is down?
You will not be able to push the apps or onto the forwarders and on the single instances.
Right. The deployment client, that is forwarders, your junior forwarder, your heavy forwarder, or single instance indexer, single instance search head, periodically polls the deployment server to get the checksum of the app assigned to them. If the deployment server is down, deployment client will not be able to receive the detail, which does not interrupt the forwarder functionality. Only thing is, new application or app which have been deployed right on the deployment server, they will not be able to pull it. The issue is here is you can't deploy the latest app configuration to the deployment client. That means forwarder or indexer or search at single instance, right? The only issue, nothing major issues. What happens?
Sir,
yes.
I couldn't find any deployment server configuration in those in the documents that you shared. I think, but when we configure this universal forwarder, we configure the deployment server IP address and port number there, and then this universal forwarder will appear in deployment server. Is it right, sir?
Correct. At least one application must be reporting to deployment server. Any one application must be reporting deployment server, then only deployment server functionality will be enabled.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, then you can create the server class, you can add the apps on the supply and post it. Okay, but no major issue when deployment server is down. What happens if universal forwarder is down?
Not be able to send the data to the
data indexer or heavy forwarder, right?
Right.
It will continue, forwarder comes up, it will continue to stream the data. What happens if license master server is down? License master is down.
Talking about the last question, in case if your universal forwarder is, let's say, down sometime, then when it comes, since when it will start streaming the data, will it take care of what was not sent as well, or only the upcoming data it is going to forward?
Yes, because see, majority of the data, such as, for example, such as your your security log, system log, applications log, right? Those logs will be available on on the event viewer, right? It will pull from the event viewer. So whatever log has not been sent before, that also will pull and forward.
Okay.
Sir, one question I have in license.
That is the reason when we integrate, for example, when integrate device, for example, Windows device will integrate, suddenly we'll get thousands of logs. Why? Because whatever logs are currently available in the event viewer, right, all log will be forwarded. It's not something that just now integrated, only current log you will get. All the previous logs you will get it, which are available in the event viewer.
Sir, regarding the license master, one instance we define as a license master and the other are slaves. My doubt is that do we only introduce the indexers and heavy forwarders as a slave, or any other instance as well? Yeah,
heavy forwarder and indexer. Heavy forwarder, you have option. If you don't, if you can configure a forwarder license. You need not to, you need not to point out to the license master in case of heavy forwarder. But the only thing is, in case you want, because if you just go with the heavy forwarder license, in that case, maybe the authentication may be disabled. So since heavy forwarder, if you are not indexing the data, it will not utilize the license. So you have the option to point out to the license master in that case.
Okay,
And
then
it's not going
it
to
will,
utilize. So your your authentication mechanism will also work. Means you can create user and user can access this heavy forwarder with different accounts.
and then the license calculation will be the indexers indexing logs. Yes, sir.
Of course, any component which indexing the log, right, will use the license. If any non-indexing license, if any non-indexing component, even if you add the license also, nothing will use, right?
Okay, sir. Then it's recommended to only introduce the indexers as slaves, not the other component. Yes.
Heavy forwarder also you can configure, because anyways it is not going to use the license, right? Heavy forwarder also you can configure. That's not a problem.
Okay, if we configure it, sir, it will use the license or it will not use. Which one, sir?
It will just it's for the validity, but I mean,
Okay,
it will use the license, but there is no usage on that, right? It will not impact the usage. It's not impact your billing.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Because non-indexing heavy forwarder, right, will not use any license count usage.
Okay, thank you.
Next question is, what happens if license master is down? What will happen if license master is down?
Nothing will go wrong. I mean, I think it has a hold time of some 72 hours down until that. So by that time, it will not be able to get whatever slaves are reporting to it, the license data, how much license they have done. But once it will be back, it will calculate that as well.
Right. So 74 2 hours is the grace period in case license master is down, right? A license slave communicate with their license volume usage to license master every minute. If actually it's a 5 second, every 5 second, not every second. It's not every minute. It's every 5 seconds it communicates. If a license slave cannot reach the license master for 72 hours or more, the slave in the violation and search is blocked. A violation still allow indexing to continue. User cannot search the slave in violation until it reconnect the license master. You know, it will continue to index the data, but the data will not be searchable until it reconnect to the license master. Okay, this is for new version. This is for new version of the Splunk. Okay, next question is how to decide number of search and indexers. How to decide? How do you decide means whether we should increase the number of search or we should increase the number of indexer? How would you decide?
Volume of logs regarding the indexers and the number of people work and utilize in the SIEM, the search itself.
That's it. That's it. That's the only parameters.
I think so.
Depending on your environment size as well. Like
environment size means what size?
Like how much data you are going to index.
Okay. And
then, as he said, depending on your user base or how many users are going to concurrently perform the searches and all, then that
based
also
on the
decide on how many search heads you require. Then indexers will be more towards like how much data you are going to index. So like for every 100 GB, I mean, a rough calculation as you had told in past that we should go for every 100 GB, you should have one indexer. So depending on how many GB of data you are going to index, you should decide the number of indexers that in environment.
As I said, that is a rough idea, but that is not 100% correct always. If you have certain more application on the search head such as Splunk Enterprise Security, Splunk ITSI Alert Manager, right? In that case, you will have more searches. In that case, you may have to have more search head and more indexers, because indexer utilization is not only based on the volume of data, right? It is based on how many searches are happening, how many concurrent searches are happening on the index. Because when you run the query on the search head, right, search head resource utilization, as well as indexer also has to respond to the query. That means indexer utilization. So indexer, we have to decide based on the volume of data as well as how many concurrent searches. Yes or no? Based on that search head, and how many concurrent searches means how many users are logging on the search head, how many searches have been scheduled, how many ad hoc searches are being run based on that search head utilization. Get in mind, search head utilization only depend on how many people are searching, concurrent searches, scheduled searches, ad hoc searches, right? Based on the search utilization, and indexer calculation based on the volume as well as based on the concurrent searches on the indexer. Based on that, we have to increase the number of indexers. Got it? So the table available in the Splunk docs shows the number of reference machines that you need to index and search the data in the Splunk enterprise, depending on the number of concurrent users, the amount of data on that instances, right? This is very brief point that has been written. We can refer to the capacity document in this link. Okay, how to choose whether heavy forwarder or universal forwarder? How to choose whether you have to go with the universal forwarder or heavy forwarder? When the use case required lightweight agent, we just collect and forward the data. No additional changes to the data is needed, such as masking, filtering at source level. Then we can go with the universal forwarder. So any dedicated machine on which you want to collect the data locally, such as Windows or Linux, we can install the universal forwarder. Whenever we need, such as filtering as well as parsing the data, right? In that case, at source level, in that case, we can use heavy forwarder. Right? Heavy forwarder can collect the data from the universal forwarder also, as well as directly from the end devices using WMI or using syslog mechanism, right? So heavy forwarder is a full-fledged Splunk enterprise, while universal forwarder is a small agent, lightweight agent. Okay. Why do we need intermediate forwarder? Yeah.
Can universal forwarders directly send the data to indexers?
Yeah, what? Yes. Universal forwarder directly can forward the data to the indexer. However, in that case, parsing will have to be done by the indexer. There will be more utilization of the indexer resources. That is my point. That is the reason we deploy. And same question in next is same question, similar question. And 16th question number is similar question. Why do we need intermediate forwarder? Same question. Intermediate will be heavy forwarder.
Heavy forwarder, yes.
Same answer of the question is, why do we need intermediate forwarder? That means even we have universal forwarder, why we need heavy forwarder? Why can't we directly forward the indexer, right? That is the same question. Intermediate forwarder will act as a consolidation point from multiple forwarders and send data to indexer as a single stream. Yes or no? That we already understood. However, it can also do the parsing if data is coming from the universal forwarder, which can reduce the overload of the indexer. Understand this question, this answer? Same thing what you have asked. Clear? Next question.
Yes, sir.
Do we need license for forwarders? Do we need license for forwarders? For example, universal forwarder. Do you need license for universal forwarder?
No.
Universal forwarder, I don't think, but heavy forwarders you may, in case if you are storing data locally.
Yes, because universal forwarder has its own license, it's pre-configured. The universal forwarder package includes its own license. The license is enabled or applied automatically. This license allow forwarding but not indexing of unlimited data. That means you cannot index the data, and also enable security on the forwarder so that you must supply username and password to access it. So but it has the pre-configured license. The heavy forwarder should have access to the enterprise license stack if you want to perform indexing on the forwarder. So heavy forwarder should be pointed out to enterprise license master if you are planning to index on the forwarder or to enable authentication on the forwarder, right? You want to enable authentication means logging, user creation, authentication. Then in that case, you can point out to, license master, right? But first case, it loses the license, but second case, only for authentication, it will not utilize the license. Just for the sake of having license, authentication enablement, it will use the license, but other purpose, it will not use the license. Got it? Clear? Next question. Why can't we use single instance with huge size instead of search head, indexer, folder separately? Why? Any answer? Why can't we use single instance of a Splunk with huge size instead of search head, cluster, search head, indexers, folder?
Because if you lose, if it will go down, then you'll not have anything to do. So for redundancy, for fault tolerance, for all those things, we have clustered environment so that if few of the members, then also end users will not be impacted.
Correct. That is one reason that this disaster recovery, load balancing, right? Multiple feature will not work, right? However, if you are not looking for load balancing or the disaster recovery also, at certain point of time, even you increase the resources also, right? Nothing will work. Still, you will not see the you will see the performance issues on the Splunk because they have not been designed to add unlimited RAM or unlimited CPUs, right? There are certain point, even increase the CPU, increase the RAM also, still you will have performance issues. The Splunk architecture has been designed in such a way that you have to go with the cluster. You have to go with the distributed architecture. Single instance, even increase all the resources, still it will not work as expected. So for POC or small deployment, single instance will be good choice, but for large scale of data and greater number of users, it will be a single point of failure. When it comes to scaling, the three functions input, index, and search can't be scaled separately as needed. Means sometime input is more, sometimes indexing more, searching more, right? Can't be scaled separate needed. In the real-time scenario, Splunk dashboard can't be created and managed in the data source itself. So that is the reason that scalability is difficult, disaster recovery is difficult, and as well as the one of the answer that I have not written here is that there are certain point where even if you increase the resources also, it will not improve the performance. Still, you will have the performance issues. That is one of the most important reason why we are not going with the single instance, architecture, single instance, where some of the SIEM component you will see that even if you single instance component also it continue to work in case you increase the performance. But in Splunk, always we have to go with the cluster environment. So next question, how Splunk store the indexes? When you see the index file of the Splunk, which all files, how it will store the data indexes?
There will be raw data and 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐢𝐧𝐥𝐢 file. So 2 files will be created.
So Splunk store the data on the flat files, right? It does not have any database. It stores the data in the form of flat files, and there are 3 files on any of the another index. One is 𝐡𝑠_IDX means index file. Another is raw data, and there are some metadata files, right, which will be available. Metadata files. So Splunk store the data on a flat file. Indexer create number of files to index data. The raw data is compressed from raw data, right? And index data that point to the raw data. 𝐡𝑠_IDX file will point to the raw data as well as some other metadata files, right? Together will be on the Splunk database and reside on the set of directories which are having buckets, right? Okay, the data in each bucket is bounded by the limited time range as well as the size of the bucket, right? So there are 3 files you will see. First of all, Splunk indexes, right? Splunk keep the data in the form of flat files, right? And that files are having three, that particular index is having three files. One is index files, TS-IDX file, raw data, as well as metadata, right? Some other metadata files.
Sir, what are the metadata files?
Some metadata means some source information it will be having, some source and source type information. Is it possible to open the flat file in the notepad? Can we open the flat file like your raw data file, right, or index file? Can we open a notepad? The answer is no. They are stored in the encoded format and can only be readable by the Splunk. Means Splunk indexes files cannot open with any other opener, right? Any other player can only be read by the Splunk. Is it possible to rename the index? If yes, how we can rename?
Yes, it is possible.
How we can rename?
Setting server control, I think. Server set.
.conf, that file. There you can name and
Where?
then push the.
Then go ahead.
I mean, on the indexer master, you can change the indexes.conf and can push the to
Indexes.conf, what will it change? What will you change? In the indexes.conf, what will you change?
on top there will be big brackets. Within that, the index name will be there.
That will call as stanza. That will call as stanza, right? The name is stanza, you have to change. For example, it was a firewall index name. Then if you want to make it as, for example, Windows, then change on bracket firewall it is written, right? Change it to Windows. Get it? And if it is a cluster, then you can push it through master index master cluster master, right? And then you have to restart the master. You have to restart. So if it is single instance, then just go on the standalone Splunk and do it, right? So yes, it is possible. You can do it. Rename in the index and the index.com and restart the Splunk. But in case this procedure is for standalone instance, not in this Splunk cluster, indexer cluster. But if you want to make it in indexer cluster, then you have to restart the cluster master after changing, changing the index name. Okay. Next question. How to clean the indexes in this Splunk instance and Splunk cluster? How will you clean the indexes? And if any index you want to clean, means you want to delete the data, that is possible. How will you do that? Splunk clean command. So first of all, standalone instance, use the below command to clean the indexes, right? So Splunk clean event data. This particular command you have to use. Go in the name in -index. Then you have to give the index name, then -f. If you run this command, right, it will clean the index. In indexer cluster, just change the retention period. Retention period change it to 10 seconds, all data will be deleted. It's very easy. You understand, right? This command you can run on the standalone Splunk instance, but this command you cannot run in the cluster. So in the cluster, whatever index data you want to delete, you can change the retention period to 10 seconds or 5 seconds or 1 second, right? 1 second means the current data only, right? Everything else will be deleted.
So will it be going to take care of deletion of archive data also, like
what? Archive data. Archive data is not in Splunk, right? It is
how to then get rid of that data?
How to restore?
How to delete that data in that case?
See, archive data is not within the Splunk. It is on your network drive, right? So wherever it is stored, you delete from there. Directly you can delete from there. Archive means just taken the backup right now outside media. You're asking me that on your system, you have to copy that file on pen drive, right? Now you're asking me how did you delete the data from pen drive? That is what you're asking. So you have taken the archival from on external media like tape, your drive, your next block storage. From there you can directly go and delete it. Okay, if you want to format, you can format the drive. Okay. Next question: how to migrate index from one server to another server? How to migrate? If you have indexes on one server, right? You want to move it to other server, right? How will you do that?
We have to just copy.
Copy a space, right? Migrate respective stranger from index.com file from the old server to new server, right? If it is size is huge, you can zip it and transfer, right? Then stop the Splunk and keep it on the respective folder, right? Just copy and paste and restart the Splunk. How to take the backup of configuration, Splunk configuration, and why should we do that? How did the backup of Splunk configuration?
We take the copy of this etc file folder.
Correct. So if you want to take the configuration backup, just slash etc file, right? etc folder all copy. If you want to get index backup, you back up Splunk database, right? Splunk, lib.var/Splunk, right? That particular whole folder you copy, right? Then the data backup will happen. So data backup generally you should not take. There will be backup team in your company who will take the maybe the incremental backup. But if configuration backup you want to take, you may have to take the configuration backup. If you are upgrading the Splunk, right? If you're doing any major changes in the Splunk, you should take the configuration backup. Data backup usually already happens, as well as configuration backup also happens by backup team. But what is the current changes that you have done? You should take the configuration backup whenever you are doing the major changes such as upgrade of the Splunk, right? Or any major changes you are doing, you should take the backup of your Splunk, right? So take the backup of the below directory, the Splunk installation, such etc directory for configuration, opt splunk var.lib for index backup, right? Take the below directories on the for unit folder. If you are taking for unit folder, then this directory. The reason behind taking the backup is also have a plan for failure scenario. This backup will help in restoring the configuration and data is stored in the Splunk. Taking the backup will differ based on the Splunk component, depend on the purpose of it being used. Detailed discussion will be needed on the architecture planning and all backup requirement. How to upgrade the Splunk enterprise? How do we upgrade the Splunk enterprise? What step do you follow when you plan to upgrade?
You have to copy the newer version onto the installed location, maybe under OPT, and then unzip it and then restart the Splunk. But
Correct.
before that, we backup, and as it was discussed in the last question, we should do the backup of configuration.
Correct. Configuration as well as we should have the data backup also. Maybe data backup is already taken by the backup team, but you ensure that data is restorable, right? Before doing such upgradation, just ensure that data is restorable and it is stored in the safe place, right? And you can it is accessible for restoration. Just ensure that. Simple.
Doing it to environment first, then to maybe UAT dev then prod.
Right. The same way we install the Splunk for first time. When you install the Splunk on top of an existing installation, it identify and upgrade and perform the same. Follow the below step. Just stop the Splunk enterprise first. Take the take the backup of the file. Download latest Splunk enterprise package. Extract the package on the top of existing installation. Then start the Splunk, right? In between, a couple of process like it will ask you preview and everything, right? Just want to preview or not. If not, then click on no. If you want to preview, click on yes, right? Then start the Splunk, right? Then you will see the Splunk has been upgraded. How do you upgrade the Splunk enterprise in the cluster? In this cluster environment, how do we upgrade this Splunk Enterprise? In the cluster, how would you?
In case of indexer cluster, you should first upgrade the master, and then let all the peers report to it, and then you can upgrade peers
Correct.
after. In case if you have multi-site, do it for one site at a time and then go to the other site, or that is for indexer. But in case of search, you can do it one by one.
Correct. How to upgrade universal forwarder? How to upgrade universal forwarder?
Sequential upgrade.
So,
Forwarder configuration.
first of all, can we upgrade our can we upgrade universal forwarder from deployment server or forwarder management?
Windows team has to upgrade it. Like
My question is, can we upgrade universal forwarder from deployment server or from forwarder management? Can we upgrade?
I think no, sir.
No.
We can only change the configuration, not the upgrade it. It should be done from the.
We are not the server owner, right? So if we are the owner,
I am saying from deployment server, can we upgrade universal forwarder from deployment server or from Splunk forwarder management? Can we upgrade?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No, right? Okay.
No.
Only if you have universal forwarder installed in a system, right? Now, if you want to upgrade single universal forwarder you have in your system, in your server, you want to upgrade. How will you upgrade?
See, we will get the updated universal forwarder installer, and we will unzip it where we had installed it.
Yes. Same as Splunk Enterprise. How we upgrade Splunk Enterprise, right? Untar it, right? Extract it, burst off the services, extract it, right? Then restart the services, right? Same way you have to upgrade the, the universal forwarder as well, right? However, in the production, you are not going to do it manually yourself, right? That can be upgraded using the script, or in Windows, you can do it through SIEM tool, patch management tool, right? We are actually not going to upgrade this universal forwarder manually, being a Splunk team, because we will not have access to these servers and devices. That if it is Linux server, can be done by the Linux team. It is Windows server, will be done by the Windows team by the SIEM or some script. How to deploy apps in the search cluster? How do you deploy?
Deployer, sir.
Deployment server.
Pro?
Deployer.
How do you do that? What is the process for doing that? So using CLI also you can do, using a GUI. So what you have to do, you just have to keep this on the deployer on this particular directories SH cluster. Under the apps, you have to keep the apps, then push the configuration bundle to the search ad using a below command, right? You run this command, right? URI management port of your master management port and username password, right? Search ad cluster URI, target URI, right? And your what we do. So any of the search ad IP address, right? And URI means HTTPS /IP address plus port number, right? And username password. So any of the search ad user ID you can mention and run this command after placing the app on the SS cluster apps. Okay, got it?
Sir, I have a question. There is while configuring the deployer, on the master node, there is a security key.
Right.
This security key should be the same in deployer and master node?
Rest same across all the clusters should be same.
The master node
keep
and
it-
the
You
deployer.
should keep it
The
same across all. Did you keep it same across all the server?
Yes, sir. Yes, I did it.
You should keep it same across all the servers. Okay, all the Splunk instance should have same security key, and it is mandatory when you're upgrading the Splunk, right? Using the rollout Splunk upgrade, the security key is mandatory.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So how do we deploy apps in this indexer cluster? How would you deploy apps in the indexer cluster?
Copy to app folder and then push it from master
Which
node.
folder? Do you remember the folder name? Which folder?
Apps, it is Splunk etc apps.
Apps or master apps?
I don't exactly remember, sir, the path.
OBT Splunk, etc, then master apps, right? So you have to copy using this tab, right? Then validate customer, either command line you can validate, or through master GUI also you can validate and post it, right? You had an option to validate and post. Whether restart is required or not, you have to validate whether restart is required or not. That option is available already in the GUI, right? That if you want to post, then you have to run this command, or you have the post option on the GUI of the master node. Yes or no? Have you guys done it? Have you deployed the apps on the
No,
next?
I'm sorry. In first stage, I didn't go further.
Anybody? So you have to do it right. Go on the master apps, right? Then you have to, if you want to validate using CLI, you have to run this command. Or on the indexer master only, you have to validate app, right? Whether restart is required or not. Then you have the option to post the app. Either you can do it to command line, or you can do it through GUI. How to connect forwarder to the indexer cluster? How to connect forwarders to the indexer cluster? Which files you have to configure?
It's forwarding, sir.
Outputs.conf.
Which file?
Outputs.conf.
On forwarder or indexer?
On forwarder.
Output.conf. Okay. So what will you mention on output.conf?
The indexer, the IP and the 997, the port.
997 only. You can't write any other port. Can't we change the port number? Can we write? Can't we have any other port number?
Yes, but it's, I think 997 is the default port number, but we can change it. Yes.
So there is a specific extender to apply the forwarding. Okay, but we have to configure the IP address of the indexers as well as port number. TCP out IP address and port number. So 997 is by default, but you cannot change the port number. So do we need to configure anything on the indexer?
We have to
input.conf.
What do we have to configure? What do we have to configure?
The receiving, sir, the input.conf file.
Input.conf, right? The inputs.conf on the each indexer. Each indexer we have to configure inputs.conf, right? And forwarder we have to configure output.conf file, and every IP address of indexer. If you have 3 indexers, 3 IP address and port number, you have to configure on the outputs.conf, right? This is the stanza. This is the stanza that you have to follow. Okay. So receiving means on the high forwarder indexer, you have to configure receiving and configure new receiving port number. Does the indexer cluster work if master is down? If yes, then why do we need a cluster master? I think the same we have already discussed.
Yes.
Does the indexer work if indexer master is down? If yes, then why do we need indexer master? We already discussed.
yes.
Similar answer it is. Now, this is an interesting question. What do you mean by collocation? Collocation of the Splunk component, and why and when we do that? Why, anybody heard this word co-location?
It's basically done to improve the performance, like the heavy forwarders and the index. Not heavy forwarder, indexer layer and the search head, they should be kept at one location so that
One
the end
location.
user.
You are partially correct, but not 100%. Anybody? I mean, you heard this word. I think that's the reason you are trying to answer.
Yes.
But not fully correct. You can read it. I'm just keeping the drop in my eyes. You can read this. So when you understand, right, when management component has a license master monitoring and sold, right, configured in single instance, right, that we call as co-location. So, but you have to keep certain things on mind while configuring the co-location. But generally it is not recommended to configure two management, instances on the same instance, two management configuration the same instances because of the utilization. But low utilization cases, you can configure it. Okay, read it. Have you gone through it? Next question. Is it possible to use deployment server distribute app to the search head cluster indexer cluster?
Yes, in standalone, not in cluster.
What is written? Yes means the answer should be no in that case. The question itself is it possible to use deployment server distribute apps to search head cluster and indexer cluster? Is it possible?
No, sir.
Not possible, right? You cannot use it in detail. Search head cluster, deploy or server and all will use. The answer is no. How to reduce license usage in Splunk? How and where the license usage is being calculated? Who calculate the license usage?
License master calculates the uses.
License master,
And
right?
you have to, the only way is to maybe get rid of the unwanted data by filtering and all.
Parsing. We
Right.
can
First of all,
move on.
in inputs.conf file only configure, right, the input which all data you are looking for. Get it? I mean, measure the data value is based on the raw data that is placed on the indexing pipeline. It is not based on the amount of compressed data which is written on the disk. Because of the data is measured on the indexing pipeline, the data is filtered and dropped prior to indexing does not count again the licensing of the volume data. That means on the input only, while collecting only, you have the option to collect only the only the respective data, not all the data. However, in the heavy forwarder, you have the option to filter out the data while forwarding to indexer. Filter also you can apply to forward the event, right? So the data is not, this compression will not help in that case because compression happens after indexing pipeline. That means after licensing count, right? Because the data measured in the indexing pipeline, the data is filtered and dropped prior to indexing does not count against the volume of the data, right? So before indexes happen, if you drop off any data, right? So in that case, you can save the license. Why do we need license master server? Why can't we install license on each and every Splunk directly? Why we need license master? Why can't we install licenses on each and every server directly? What is the answer for that?
better management, because having every instance to report for license breaches, I don't think it is in practice anyway.
That is for centralized management. Every time you have to check license usage and everything if you are using single instance, right? So that is the overhead. Because of that, we are using centralized. But you have awesome, but the management will be difficult. That is the reason we are using license master. Can the replication factor be lower than the search factor? Can the replication factor can be lower than the search factor?
No, I think.
I think means I want confirm answer. If not, then why?
No, because an indexer should receive the logs. If there is an indexer, they should receive. If the replication doesn't happen, then the instance will not receive the log.
Not clear, it seems. Anybody can answer this question? Can the replication factor can be the lower than the search factor?
It should always be greater than SF1A because
What should be higher? See, replication factor and search factor can be equal, but search factor cannot be more than replication factor. Why? Because replication factor means how many copy of data you have, means how many indexer you have in the cluster, right? If you have total 3 indexers, many 3 replication factor. 3 copies replicate, right? Get your mind? Then 3 copy of the data. Then how many indexers are having searchable copy of data? It can have maximum 2 because you have only 3 indexers. So searchable copy of the data also can be 3 or less than 3. It cannot be more than 3. Yes or no? Because 3 only you have indexers. Means replication factor you have 3 only. Search factor can never be more than 3. Because you have only 3 indexers. How you can have 4 copy of searchable data? So it can be either equal to replication factor or less than replication factor. Yes or no? Got it? Clear? Clear to everyone? Next question. So it is written, no replication cannot be lower than the search factor. Search factor talk about how many searchable copy of the data of the replicated copy which is dedicated on replication factor. So that you can't be like 4 searchable copy out of 3 replicated copy, right? That means 3 indexers and searchable copy cannot be 4. How to create indexes on the searcher on the indexer cluster? How to create indexes on the indexer cluster?
Yeah. So,
What do you have to do in that case? Create a indexes.conf file in your app, right? Whatever app you are using, create a indexes.conf file on the app and deploy the app. So you have to create an app to create the which app you want to create the indexes. So we have already created on our practical classes, right? That is the process you have to create the indexes. What do you mean by retention policy and where it can be used in the Splunk? What do you mean by retention policy?
The period that companies keep the log.
every log has a specific storage period.
Every log?
I mean, not every log. Like
bucket.
log which are coming that needs to be stored.
You can see every index or every bucket. You can see every index or every type of bucket, right? Will have certain retention policies. You can see warp DB count and frozen period. You can see frozen period, frozen time period, right? A frozen period time period you have set is called retention. How long in second? How long you want to retain the copy of data on the index, right? You can see data retention policies are set of rules that determine how long data remain available for consumption from the message queue. Typically, stream data is retained in the available state until a specific interval of time has been passed or maximum amount of data is exceeded, right? That means if the time you have configured that is passed, it will get deleted, or the data gets filled, the storage that is assigned get filled, then the data will be deleted. What is the default size retention period of any index? And a new index that you create, what is the default retention period? Because while creating an index, it does not, you do not define the retention period, right? You can manipulate, but by default, it takes the default retention period.
Sir, do you assign a retention period also in indexes, sir?
Yes,
or only buckets?
No, indexes we can define, and by default, this is stanza in the indexes.conf file. You can see this is stanza, frozen time period in second, right? So the frozen time period is by default set on every indexes, even you do not configure it. By default, it takes. So what is the period? It is the period by default 6 years. 6 years. What will happen if network connectivity between the forwarder and indexer is lost? What will happen in that case?
The logs will not be forwarded to an indexer. It will cache the log.
Forwarder will cache the logs, right? And once indexer connectivity comes up, it will forward all the logs, right? Now, forwarder will not be able to connect to the indexer, due to the which data flow will be stopped and will be on hold. Some of the data block will be stored on the wait queue. Once the wait queue is full, the data stop reading the data. The forwarder will stop the reading the data. So wait queue you have to increase. That means cache memory you have to increase. You want to hold the data for a long period of time. Otherwise, it will stop reading the data from the source. What happens when you remove the stanza from index.conf and restart the index? Index.conf is stanza, for example, firewall index, right? That stanza is there. If you remove that stanza, what will happen?
It will be removed, I think.
What? Only stanza you are deleting, right? What will happen in that case?
New data will not be going to be indexed.
New data will not be indexed. And what about searches on the index? Will it allow to search?
Whatever data was indexed before deletion will be able to get as a result.
So do you think that you are searching as firewall and index equal to firewall, but firewall name itself is not there? Will it be searchable? Do you think it will be searchable? Because name was firewall index, but name stanza you have deleted. So it is no more firewall index, right? There is no name of the index. Can you search the data by writing index equal to firewall? You can't, right? You can't do that, because once you make the changes on the index.conf file and restart the Splunk, that means it will return the Splunk, right? It would not restart, right? Because there's a major change. After making changes on any configuration, you have to restart. If you are not restarting, changes will not be implemented. But once you restart and delete the Splunk, delete the stanza, remove, restart the Splunk, right? That particular index data will not be searchable in that case. Index time will disappear from the list. The index data will be still reside on directory which was indexed, but the data will not be searchable. If we create the stanza again for the same index and restart the Splunk, then data will become searchable, right? Again, you create the stanza, restart the Splunk, then you can make that particular data searchable. Never next. What happens if when the disk is full, that when index is full, what will happen in that case? If index is full, what will happen?
The older log will be discarded or the new log will come like this. It will accept the new logs and
Deleted. Correct.
remove. Yes.
First in, first out basis. First in, first out basis. If the index is full, indexing pipeline will be on hold. The index is full, the oldest data will be removed as per the retention policies, right? That means new data it will still receive, but older data will be removed. Okay. Next. Thank you. Khatam ho gaya. And now still I have around 30-35 questions that I have to prepare. 30 to 35 questions I have to prepare for this. So I'll be sharing with you once I prepare those questions. So only around 70 questions I'm planning. So few more questions I have to prepare. These are some of the scenarios that you understand, right? You have checked your knowledge based on the understanding that we had. So around 30 questions also I'll be sharing with you. So this, you want this document?
Yes, we'll have it.
Of course.
What
So
do you think?
I'll be converted into the PDF document. I'll be sharing with you as a part of PDF document. Okay, so one of the question you had like this document I have to say it, right? Btool examples. So Btool means you can verify. One of the most important use cases for Btool is if you have same configuration is available in multiple configuration file, right? Such as for example, inputs.conf, input.conf, you can see secure.log, secure.log, this particular monitor var secure.logs, this particular inputs configuration is applied in multiple input.conf file, right? Then you can run this command Splunk Btool inputs. Input means you want to verify changes on the inputs configuration file, right? So first of all, you have to write Splunk input. So in the if you are running this on the Linux, right, then /Splunk Btool, then which file you want to check the configuration inputs, then you write inputs. If you want to check on the server.conf, then server you write. If you want to check on output.conf, then outputs, then list, then what you want to verify. Right now, this path you want to check, then you write it and /debug. Once you write this, then you can see the result. The same input.conf file, this particular file is available where inputs.conf under search local input.conf, under system local input.conf, system default input.conf, search local input.conf. Right? If you open this, you can see etc system local input.conf, you have this one. If you open app search input.conf, you can see you got this secure.log, right? So sometimes you'll happen same configuration is present on the bigger environment. You will see same configuration present on multiple files, right? Multiple directories, multiple configuration files. So sometimes if you want to change the configuration, you change one of the file configuration, but you see the change is not implemented because that particular configuration is not the first precedence, right? That is the reason the changes have not been implemented. Then you will think that where the configuration will be deployed, because in the bigger environment you have multiple tools, right? Many apps you have. So which apps the respective configuration has been configured, which have the first precedence, you'll not be able to identify. And in that case, you can run this Btool commands. There are some other uses also, but main usage is this particular command for debugging, the troubleshooting the issues if you have multiple, this one configuration.
Sir, what is the debugging mode? In
Debugging is the command. Debugging means troubleshooting. Debugging means if any issues you have, right? So debugging, right? That this is something we are doing debugging. Debugging means we are changing, but changes are not implemented. It means kind of bug. So once we write the debug command, it will show you the list of the configuration files where you'll have the same configuration. So the debug process. This is called as debug process. So now we are supposed to start enterprise security, but the reason that we could not have the class last time also because of the license. Recently, our license for Splunk Enterprise has been expired. I was reaching to the Splunk already. I make the payment already, but they have not yet renewed the license. I did not get their process has been changed. So after making the payment also, I'm waiting for the license. The Splunk Enterprise Security class is for 2 days. So most probably next week we'll get the license. So what I'll be doing is, right, it's a screen sharing session only. I'm sharing the Splunk Enterprise Security session from previous batch. And just 2 days class it is. So I'll be sharing with you. You can watch it. And I'll be enabling the lab access once we get the license. Is that fine with you? It's same only, screen sharing classes only, right? How to deploy Splunk Enterprise Security, how to configure, how to search, how to writing the correlation rules. That is being covered, and how to monitor real-time incident on the Splunk Enterprise Security as a SIEM, right? That is being covered in those classes. So I'll be sharing with you on those classes, and as soon as we get the license, I'll be enabling you the lab access also through VPN, so you can explore all the options that we have in Splunk Enterprise Security.
Sir, I have a question about this type of users exist in Splunk.
Tell me.
Yes, we have, for example, I'm also, sir, in the SOC program. We have L1, L2, L3 as we discussed there.
Correct.
Then how we assign this privileges,
Privilege means
what kind of access they have
based on the role.
Yes.
For example, L1 is doing only searching and reporting, right? They cannot create any shared app, right? As well as based on the indexes, which all indexes you want to give them access, read only, write access. They should not be manipulating any changes, settings, right? So they will have in majority of the settings, majority of configuration, they will have only read only access for the L1. In Splunk, somebody is somebody is responsible for onboarding the data sources only, right? Doing device integration and only inputs and output configuration, device integration, right? That kind of access will be given to them. The rest of the access will not give them full access, full admin access, because that particular person is data administrator, which is responsible for onboarding in the devices. Okay. So
okay, sir.
Based on the roles and responsibilities, we have to give the access. By default, there are 3 access you already created: user, power user, and administrator, right? However, you have the option to create different groups, and you have all the privileges on the checkbox. So which all access you want to give, based on that, you can select the checkbox.
In clustered environments, sir, which Splunk, in a sense, we use to assign, to create users and assign privileges.
See, in the cluster, right? In the cluster environment, it will be difficult. If you create the local account, it will be difficult for you to create the users. In cluster environment, we'll use a single sign-on. That means Active Directory. We'll integrate the Active Directory, and Splunk will be the part of domain, so that we can manage all accounts with single through domain controller only. We are not going to create the account on each and every instances. Okay, we'll create the AD group. We'll create the AD group on the Active Directory, and based on that, we'll give the access, not directly from the Splunk.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so guys, thank you for joining my class. We'll wind up the day.
Hi, Sulabh sir. I have few questions.
Yes,
this side.
Yes, Osif, go ahead.
Yeah. So, sir, I have a question related to heavy forwarder. So you said that in order to if heavy forwarder stores the data locally, then it also needs to have a license installed into it. So in what scenario will heavy forwarder will index or store the data locally?
In what scenario means it is up to you. For example, I have office. I have data center in Riyadh, Bengaluru, and New York, right? There are some certain requirements sometime where clients said that, okay, the Riyadh data center data should be also stored locally in the Riyadh data center, right? In that case, the heavy forwarder that you have deployed in the Riyadh will store the copy of data, so that if local data, if somebody want to search, he can log in the heavy forwarder and can search the data on the heavy forwarder itself. Otherwise, from monitoring perspective, there is no such requirement for holding the data. In case you have any such specific requirement, then only you can store the data locally on the heavy forwarder as well. Otherwise, there is no such requirement.
Got it, sir. Thank you. So the next question to this will be, let's say if heavy forwarder is configured to index the log and save it locally,
Right.
So will it forward that saved data to further to the indexer cluster or indexer, or will it keep it itself only?
As soon as you configure the forwarding on the configure the forwarding on any Splunk instance, right? It will become the heavy forwarder, right? Then by default, it will not store the copy of data. Then once you select forwarding default option, you select store the local copy of data, then it will start storing one copy of the data. Means whatever data received on the input, it will make 2 copies of the data. One copy it will store locally, and one copy it will forward to the indexer that you have configured.
Okay. So for example, let's say we're talking about the cluster environment over here. So when the heavy forwarder, as you said, it is having 2 copies. One, it will be saving locally on the heavy forwarder itself, and
Right.
another copy will be sent further to the indexer itself.
Right.
So when the search will make a query, the query will always go to the indexer because it does not know the IP address of heavy forwarder. So the query will not go to heavy forwarder at all. Is that true? Is my understanding correct?
Through indexer, through search head, you can't search on the heavy forwarder, because heavy forwarder is not cluster like indexer. In heavy forwarder is
Correct.
Splunk, right? You have the searching app on the heavy forwarder. Through that you can search the data.
Yeah, that I understood. No, I'm just little trying to, this is just for my benefit. I just wanted to understand my clarity over here. So let's say I'm sitting on the other side, I'm doing a search on the search head. So since search head is making a query to the master cluster, and in turn master cluster is telling, okay, these many indexers I'm having, please go ahead and talk to the indexer clusters.
Right.
But in this search head searching scenario, the heavy forwarder will not come at picture at all when we're talking about the centralized search head.
Correct.
Yeah, heavy forwarder is only there, like you talk, like the way you answered my first question, that if somebody wants to save it locally, if they don't want to, search it centrally. So the example you gave, Riyadh. So in case of her heavy forwarder, people will be only people located in Saudi only. They will be able to search locally on the heavy forwarder search app itself, but not on the central search head.
That
Is my
means
understanding right?
it's not about located, because being here also you may have access to the heavy forwarder, right? So it's not located.
Yeah, remotely.
You want to search on the heavy forwarders, then you have to log in on the heavy forwarder only. And you have search app there. Do the search app and search the data on the heavy forwarder. That is how you
Perfect. Understood.
so search head you can't search.
Okay. So when we say that, okay, when heavy forwarder has to store the data, then it needs a license. It's just a matter of a statement that I wanted the clarification.
Correct. Yes.
So when we say it stores the data, does that mean before storing it has to index first, or it will store the data directly first?
Of course. Without indexing, Splunk never store the data without indexing.
So it has to go to the indexing pipeline. So it has to index first, and then it has to store.
Correct. Means first of all, it will come parse, then the license meter will run, then it will index the data, right? That means it will use the license. Without indexing, Splunk can't store the log without indexing. That's the internal functionality of this Splunk.
Understood, sir. Another question I have related to search head clustering. So we saw in the practical example of it that when we enable the search head clustering on search head, then the app installation and the app configuration gets disabled by default.
Correct.
Because when we click on the menu, the option itself will not come. But but the option itself will not come. But if you click, there is a button called all settings. The moment you click on all settings, then all the options will be shown like as it will be like a normal indexer or normal instance itself.
Right.
And so what happens if we configure indexing in that scenario on the search head? What happens in that scenario?
So, sorry, second question I did not get you. You said like
I'm saying,
but
if you have a search head ready, sir, right now, is it possible for you to share the screen? It will make more sense what I'm trying to say.
All instances are down actually right now. All the instances are down.
Now, basically, what happens when we make a search head clustering? So we have a very limited visibility on the settings options. Okay, but there is a button called show all settings. The moment you click on show all settings,
correct,
there you can see all the options, whatever we can see normally in indexing or heavy forwarding. So what happens if we configure those settings in the search head cluster?
unbalance will be created. That's again those options have been hidden, have become hidden on the search head, because imbalance will be created, right? If you install the app and one search header will not install at the same time, the imbalance of the cluster will be happening. That's the reason it is not recommended. Even if you find the setting, also it is not recommended. Otherwise, if you don't have the setting in the GUI, right, you can directly copy and paste from the backend configuration file. Yes or no? You already have backend configuration file. This option has been hidden so that you should not do it standalone on the standalone search head. You should not deploy the app. You should do it only through deployer only.
Okay, sir. Yeah, sure. That's all from my side.
You already have your GUI option is hidden. You can go in the configuration file, backend configuration, go in the apps, and you can just copy and paste the app by extract it and just copy and create the folder, right? You can deploy it if you don't find the option in the GUI, but it is not recommended. Otherwise, imbalance will be created. That's the reason you go always using the deployer, not through standalone search head. You should deploy.